This is the most important thing that you as a taxpayer need to understand. The regulators work for and with the people that develop. Has the FDA bothered to cross the street to investigate this case?
Absolutely not.
I'm here with Angela Wilbrecht, and we're talking today about the case of Alexis Lorenze.
Yeah, Alexis Lorenze, yes.
Alexis has gone through an incredible experience this week with UC Health in Irvine, California. And this week, she had an unbelievable vaccine injury. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so she had a history of an underlying blood disorder, and she sought out treatment at UCI. She thought she was seeing the best hematologist. In order to get a treatment from UCI for her condition, they told her that the medication she was going to get required her to be vaccinated. And she contemplated for days and days, thinking like, this is not a good idea. She hasn't been vaccinated since she was a child. And she had doctors back in Florida where she's from that told her that vaccines are probably not the best idea for her because she's so immunocompromised with her condition. And she just felt very desperate because she wanted to get better. She was feeling that her symptoms from her disease was worsening and she needed help. And she really trusted the doctor that was taking care of her. She trusted UCI. So she went in, and when they told her that she needed these vaccines, she was scared. The doctor reassured her that she's been doing this, that they were safe, that they were effective, that she was not going to have any problems with it. She wasn't given true informed consent because she was never told that anything bad could happen. And she thought about it and prayed about it for a couple of days and then made the decision that it was something she had to do because otherwise she would have to leave the hospital without treatment because that was the only option. So unfortunately, she gave consent. It wasn't informed consent, but it was consent. And she was given 3 shots back to back within minutes of each other. And within 5 minutes after getting the 3 vaccines, she had a life-threatening, critical, adverse reaction take place. She immediately started shaking uncontrollably. She lost her vision within 5 minutes in both eyes. She was seeing flashing light, lost vision in one eye, then lost vision in the other eye. Within 5 minutes, blood was pouring out of her nose. She was coughing up blood. She was just in an incredible amount of pain. And then within about 30 minutes, these red patches just started appearing. She started bleeding under her skin. And the only way I can think about it is, or describe it, is that she just had this massive hyperimmune response. And I've never heard somebody in such intense pain in 25 years of being a nurse. I was on the phone. I was in the Bay Area at the time, but I was on the phone with them on speakerphone, and she was screaming bloody murder at the top of her lungs. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. This is not okay. I need help. Please help me. And she was so desperate. They failed to recognize that she was having an adverse reaction to the vaccine. So instead of taking excellent care of her, like you would if you're in a hospital and you give anybody a medication and they have a complication from it, the thing that you do is you take care of them. You are there for them. You take care of them. And they completely neglected her. They abandoned her in her room. She would push her call light. 3 hours would go by with her begging and pleading for help.
All they've been doing is coming into the room, telling me, oh my gosh, you look like you're in so much pain. We're so sorry. Giving me a new opioid to try and leaving for another 4 hours. I've been begging for eye drops for at least 6 hours because my eyes burn and they won't let me touch my face, but my eyes are itchy. I can no longer lower my neck, and there's a giant lump here in my skin, and I've been asking for a CT scan since last night, and they won't come.
She even got so desperate that she took off all of her EKG monitors, thinking that, well, maybe if they're thinking that I'm having a heart attack because they can't read my EKG, they'll come in and help me. Even that, with her monitors off and dinging, 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 they still wouldn't come in the room for another 30 minutes. And then she got so desperate, she went out in the hallway screaming. And I was on the phone hearing it. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I need help. So what they did instead was stood outside of her room and laughed.
They're just coming in and telling me, oh, we understand you're in pain. I've been screaming and yelling, screaming that I need immediate relief to this. And all they care about is putting me on more opioids to make me tired, because I think they don't want me reporting this anymore. Because one of the doctors came in and said that I could be in trouble for recording everything because it's against the nurses' wishes, but I never put any of the nurses on camera, just their voice.
So she heard the nurses and the doctors laughing and repeating everything that she was saying like she was a crazy person. And that's when Steve Kirsch said, Angela, we need to put you on a plane and fly you down there. Like, we cannot be dealing with this from up here. You need to be at the bedside. So I got on the next flight. I arranged for her to be transferred into the ICU where she needed to be to begin with. And from the time that I arrived, care completely changed. They took us seriously. But it's just been awful. I mean, even at that point, before I arrived, she was so scared that she was being neglected and abandoned, and she needed help. She called 911 from inside her room.
Oh my gosh.
I called the police, and they told me I wasn't supposed to call because I'm in another hospital. But then they sent a bunch of police officers that work with the hospital in here and told me that they can't do anything. Thank you. Please keep sharing. They're trying to kill me, and one of the doctors said to me, well, science is a medicine, and I said, medicine is science. So I said, sir, so what you're telling me is I'm your science experiment? Because they're saying they've never seen anything like this before. They admitted I am a science experiment to them, and they don't care about my life.
She didn't know what else to do. She's like, nobody is helping me. I'm dying. And what do you do when you think you're going to die? You call 911. So here she is in a hospital having to call 911 from inside her room because she had no other option. And so it's been a disaster. I'm really, really just disappointed that they are not recognizing this as a vaccine injury. They're saying that this is just a coincidence.
And it was moments after.
It was within minutes. So in medicine, if you give a patient a drug and within minutes they have an adverse reaction,
right,
you assume that it's the drug that you just gave. You don't say, oh, it's everything else but what I just gave her. I mean, right, it's the most unscientific thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Now, an interesting thing about University of California, Irvine is that their main campus is right down the road here in Irvine, California, which happens to be about a mile from the United States Food and Drug Administration, who authorizes and approves vaccines. And now, has the FDA bothered to cross the street to investigate this case?
Absolutely not. Not that I'm aware of. They haven't come to us. They haven't come to the family. No.
So now I think a lot of people assume that because the FDA, you have, Peter Marks, Paul Offit, these guys come out and say, oh, we investigate with VAERS and all these other programs for vaccine adverse events reports. You would assume that when you have such a dramatic vaccine reaction, like Lexi just had, that the FDA would be there, but they're not.
They're not.
Another interesting thing is that UC Irvine campus also has a vaccine development department. Research and development headed by Philip Fulchner is his name, I believe. It's right up the road. Have they investigated? Have they contacted you?
No, they have not, nor the family.
So you have researchers and regulators, all part of UCI, and they're not investigating. They're not involved. This is the most important thing that you as a taxpayer need to understand. The regulators work for and with the people that develop. And all this money is going from your pockets to these people. and they're not investigating when something goes wrong. Thank you, Angela. It's been a real impressive response that you guys were able to get down here so fast. And you're with BSRF?
Yeah.
Vaccine Safety Research Foundation?
Yeah. Steve Kirsch.
And Steve Kirsch. And I just want to say thank you and thank Steve and everyone that's come down here to help Lexi. And, you know, everyone here in Orange County, we're all very upset about this. We understand that there's a problem, and we're here to help, guys. And
thank you. All I want from the FDA is to acknowledge that these injuries exist, and I want the FDA to be transparent with their data. We need to be transparent. People deserve to know the truth about what is happening, and people don't. So until we have data transparency and until they acknowledge that millions of people around the world are suffering these effects, I have completely lost trust in our medical system. And it's a system that I believed in. I mean, I went to nursing school for 6 years, and I've been a nurse for 25 years, and I trusted and believed in them. And now that trust is completely broken. And the reason why I'm at her bedside is because I do not want anything else to happen to that poor girl. She's the sweetest thing, and we're going to get her through this.
She's very lucky to have you guys with her.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
So tell your congressman, tell your senators, get the FDA off their butt and start helping people like Lexi so that this doesn't happen again. And if it does happen, hospitals are trained to react appropriately. This is the most important thing. If you're not educating doctors and nurses about vaccine injury, they're going to assume everything is a lie. And how many times are horrible events covered up because hospitals don't know how to treat vaccine injuries and people don't have advocates like you to show up and help?
Well, the first thing that I asked is, can you please file a VAERS report? Most of the nurses didn't even know what that was.
Right.
And then when I asked the doctors, I asked two of her main doctors, please, I need you guys to file a VAERS report. And they said, well, we're taking it up the chain of command. It's not mandatory for us to file a VAERS report because she didn't have a syncopal episode and she didn't have pain at the injection site. Those are the only two criteria for the vaccine she received for them to file a VAERS report. And I said, well, actually, she had horrific pain in her arm. Her whole arm went numb. Wherever she got poked, she was in an excruciating amount of pain, but that was the least of her problem. Right now, what we're dealing with Lexi, last night, she developed such severe chest pain. Her troponin levels went through the roof. So we had to work her up for going into cardiac arrest and having a heart attack. We've had to do 2 CT scans of her brain. I mean, having a, little arm pain is like the least of her worries. So the doctors told me, well, we're not mandated to report it to VAERS because she doesn't fit in the 2 criteria of arm pain or a syncopal episode. I said, her problems are so much more severe than that. You mean to tell me that because she didn't have those 2 problems, you can't fill this out? And this is why the underreporting factor is so huge, because doctors don't fill these out. So we have millions of people we don't even know how bad these injuries are across the world because people are not doing their job to report this.
Well, thank you for holding them accountable, and hopefully we'll get some better reaction.
Yeah, and I hope we can make change with this. I hope they can make right what has been wronged, and I would love for the FDA to come and talk with us. I'd love for them to see her and see the pain in her sister and her father's eyes and what they're having to witness. It's horrific.